from Elijah Amadi. It's page 52. A popular saying among the less intelligent Igbos was, "This is Biafra land." To them, the proclamation of independence meant the communal ownership of land, a highly prized thing in Igbo land. In my village, Igbos who had been living among us peacefully for years suddenly became aggressive and tyrannical. They would walk into private property and harvest plantains, oranges, and pawpaws in spite of protests from the owners. "This is Biafra land," was all they said. A palm cutter who had hitherto been exploiting my family's palm plantation for a rental refused to pay any more rent soon after the proclamation of secession. What was more, he walked fearlessly onto my family land and cleared a considerable chunk of it for farming purposes. When I confronted him, all he said was, quote, "This is Biafra land," end quote. I could go to court if I liked, he advised. It was unthinkable. All this time, the customary courts were corrupt and scandalously inefficient. Further, they were handicapped by a racket which they could do nothing about. If a defendant felt he had no leg to stand on, all he needed to do was to ask for a transfer of the case to the magistrate court in Port Harcourt. He would then race to Port Harcourt and see the man who handled the transfers, see in court. The application would then be buried underneath a pyramid of files. The plaintiff at the customary court and might then wait for years without getting a hearing. The customary court would tell him, and quite rightly, that they were waiting to hear from the higher court. This practice was particularly successful in land matters because while a case was hanging fire, a land grabber could plant crops and harvest them. In fact, it was rumored that this was a carefully worked out device to do the natives out of their land. This was probably untrue, but in the circumstances it was difficult not to believe it. A little more. I watched helplessly as the trespasser bit deeper and deeper into our land, planting as he went. The particular piece of land in question did not matter very much. In fact, if the man had come in the usual way to ask for it, he would have got it without any trouble. As it was, he was deliberately carrying out an experiment which, if successful, would have grave consequences for all landowners. The only thing to do was to put up a very bold front. With luck, the man might be frightened off. If, as often happened, he invited his tribesmen to help him, then I would just have to give up the unequal struggle. Let's read a bit more. Early one morning, my brothers and I, armed with sharp knives and cudgels, took up positions on the farm. This is what they had to do. I conspicuously parked my battered Volkswagen by the roadside. By midday, nobody had appeared. We went home. We did this for a week without anyone showing up. Eventually, the farm was overrun with weeds. I had won a victory, but I knew it was Pyrrhic. It was a Pyrrhic victory. I was branded a saboteur, and many damning reports about me were sent to the militia, the civil defense, and the army headquarters in Port Harcourt and Umuahia, the new rebel capital. I had never felt so trapped in my life. Who is speaking here? Elijah Amadi. What book is this? Sunset in Biafra. Is this the worst thing? No. I'll read something here, and then I'll go to the other book. About this time, in December 1967, my village was engaged in its annual Please guys, listen to this story. Story, true life story. About this time, December 1967, my village was engaged in its annual fishing spree in Balam, a series of freshwater ponds very rich in fish. The Igbos living in our midst insisted on fishing. "It is Biafra fish," they said. We resisted, knowing full well the possible repercussions. This is what Yoruba should get. When you hear, "We found Lagos," you have to respond. You are not being petty, you are being wise. This thing has terrible ramifications. The Igbos living in our midst. Meanwhile, before now, everybody used to be together, no problem, or like we're all brothers and sisters, Igbo, Ikwere, no problem. But as soon as that thing was declared Biafra, everybody just enter people land. They even enter people water. People where they fish, then a Biafra fish. But more continue. We'll see how this one plays out, and then we'll go to the other stuff. It says, about this time, December 1967, my village was engaged in its annual fishing spree in Balam, a series of freshwater ponds very rich in fish. The Igbos living in our midst insisted on fishing. It is Biafra fish, they said. We resisted, knowing full well the possible repercussions. We were defeated. Secessionist soldiers were posted along the path to the ponds. Ay, ay, ay. As a fisherman emerged, they were made to surrender their catch at gunpoint. The villagers reacted splendidly. They did not panic or fight back. They were prepared, they said, to provide the soldiers with fish so long as they, the owners of the pond, did the fishing. For days, the soldiers carted off baskets of fish for nothing. In the end, their consciences stung them. They grew ashamed and relented. And so what with rice and fish stew, we kept up the spirit of Christmas in spite of the tensions of war.